Hi, this is Nikki. Welcome to my channel, and today I'm sharing with you a few DIYs that's part of the Just Our Imagination challenge. I got this stationery box at Goodwill, and I believe I paid $6 for it. I'm using my dad's air dry clay for this project. I'm going to use one of my IOD molds, and I'm going to dust it with some cornstarch and start my first casting. If you've ever worked with air dry clay, it can be a lot of fun, but at times it can be frustrating. I've noticed over time that you really have to make sure that you dust your molds first, and also you have to paint your clay before it dries completely. But other than that, it's really easy to work with. If you don't paint your clay, it's likely that you'll have a lot more cracks. So just push it down in there and then use your thumbs to work with and scrape all the way across the top. And then you're going to want to flex your mold and then flip it over and roll it right back. And there's our first casting. I'm going to use my Titebond wood glue to adhere my casting onto my stationery box. This is part of the Just Our Imaginations challenge, and this month the hosts are Kathy Jo from Kathy Jo's DIY, Brenda from Rustic and Lace, and I believe it's pronounced Aurea from DIY with Aurea. And the challenge items are clay, a zipper, and beads of some sort. I'm going to cast these little birds and I'm going to put these on the front of my box. I didn't notice at first that they're two different size birds, so I just go back in and cast another the same size. And that's where I realized they're two different sizes. And then I just go and use my microfiber rag and just wipe off the extra wood glue. And this is how it's looking so far. I'm going to go in with some Cottage White by Folk Art, and I'm going to paint over the whole thing. And I do let my castings rest for at least 2 hours, just so they have like a crust over the top. I don't want to let them dry completely, and I paint the whole thing. And I end up leaving it overnight. I'm going to mix some salt wash in with that same Cottage White, and I'm going to apply that using a dabbing motion. I'm just using a small sponge to get into all those little cracks. One thing I love about working with clay is it's very relaxing. I kind of just go off into my own world and it's peaceful. Let me know down in the comments how your Mother's Day was. I had to work this weekend, so my son also had to work, my youngest boy. He came down and took me out to breakfast on Friday morning, and then my daughter came on Saturday, and every year she brings me a lobster roll, and that's a big thing in Maine is lobster, and I love it. So every year she gets me one of those, and we got to spend some time together. And my oldest boy is out traveling, so but he did call. Anyway, after all this is dry, I go over it with Antiquing Wax by Waverly, and I'm going over it heavily. That way it goes down into the cracks. And then I'm going to pull it back using a microfiber rag. And this is going to add some definition to our castings. Isn't that pretty? And I'm going for an old vintage style look. I want this to look like something that came out of the early, 1700s. And just keep going over it and wiping it back. Really shows the beauty in the castings, all the detail. Off camera, I did add some rub-on transfers and a couple other embellishments. I added a tag to the front there, and this is what it came out like. Guys, I think this came out so pretty. I'm going to keep this for myself. I'm going to use it on my desk in my office, and yeah, I love it, and I hope you do too. Don't forget to hit that like button and leave me a message down in the comments. Let me know how your Mother's Day was or how things are going in general. I'd really love to hear from you. I'm starting out by painting this Dollar Tree cutting board, the color White Cottage by Folk Art, and I am mixing that in with some salt wash. And I'm painting all around the board except for the middle. This stuff dries pretty fast too because it's got a lot of texture to it. And okay, so you guys need to hang on with me for a minute. Okay, so I mixed the cottage white, the leftover cottage white, in with some moss green by Waverly. And I distressed the whole board with that. And I got this printable off of Linda's DIY design. And I printed that off on my printer and used some glue to adhere it to my cutting board. So as I'm making this, I'm like, I'm not really liking this. And, just keep working with it. If I don't like something, I just keep working with it and see where I end up. So I'm looking at it here and I'm like, ew, so let's try to distress it. So I went in with some antique wax and distressed over it. And once again, I'm like, ugh. I had no idea where I was going. So I added some wooden beads, some half wooden beads, and that was one of the challenge items for this. And I distressed those with some antique wax as well. And you can see there on the side, there's a gap between the beads, and that's where I'm going to try and put my ribbon to try to hide that. And I got some wired twine I'm going to add in. I'm going to curl up my wired twine using a pencil, and then I'm going to glue that right onto my cutting board. And I'm going to add a button to the top of that after I get this ribbon trimmed down. And a hanger. And I'm looking at it and I don't love it. I don't love it. And in fact, I don't like it. So I go in with some ink, black chalk paint by Waverly, and I paint the entire chalkboard. And as I'm going along, I'm thinking, I think this is going to work. Starting to look better already. And that's just it. If you just keep going with a project, 9 times out of 10, you're going to love the end result. And this was one of those projects. So after it dried, I wrapped some twine around the top. I did put my hanger back through the hole. I lightly sanded it. I did not want to see that bright white. To finish it off, I added some black speckles to the top. And that's it. I think this came out so cute. I was surprised. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Okay, this project is supposed to include a zipper, so I cut this one out of an old couch pillow, the same couch pillow that I use all the stuffing from, and I'm just trimming it down. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with it at this point, but you can just watch me as I fiddle around with it. And at this point, I'm looking at it thinking, oh, okay, it looks like it has wings. It could potentially be an insect. So I take a piece of the zipper and I fold it in the shape of a wing or a loop and glue it off and give it a few minutes to cure. And then I'm thinking I don't need these, so I cut these off. I keep going in all kinds of directions with this one. I'm going in with the color Spring Green by Apple Barrel, and I'm going to paint the whole thing. And this is where I removed the zipper altogether and just using the pull. I did end up doing, I think, 3 coats on this. I'm using these little beads that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm painting them the color Ink by Waverly. I'm painting the wings the same color, and this took quite a few coats as well. These were not easy to paint. It probably would have helped if I used chalk paint, but I didn't have anything in that color. I'm going to glue on the little eyes, just using some hot glue. And this is supposed to resemble a dragonfly. The eyes need a little touch up, so I'm just going over them again with some more ink by Waverly. Looking at it from this angle, it kind of looks like it could be a fish or maybe a frog, I don't know. But here you can tell that it's starting to look like a dragonfly. I think it's kind of pretty for being a zipper, not too bad. I lost the footage on painting the house, but that is moss green mixed in with cottage white. And I believe I put a little bit of salt wash in that paint as well. I got this napkin at decoupagenapkins.com, and I'm going to use a little Mod Podge, and I'm going to spray a little bit of water to adhere this down to my roof. I'm going to go over the whole thing with some Mod Podge to seal it in. I drilled a hole in the bottom of my birdhouse and put a little wood glue. I got a dowel and I ran it through my pencil sharpener and put it up inside of my little house. I got these rocks from the Dollar Tree and I'm putting them down inside this clay pot. This clay pot I've had for a while. It's been decorated, so I'm putting it to use now. It's looking pretty cute so far. I am going to put some Spanish moss down inside. I was going to go with the reindeer moss, but then decided to switch it out. And I'm going to push that down in there all around. And then I'm going to drill another hole. This one's in the back of the house. And I'm going to run some fairy lights through the back. I'm going to wrap around probably about 6 inches or so around the base and try and hide them in the moss a little bit. Then just going to put the controller, slide that down in there. I'm using this wired twine and some wooden flowers I got off of Temu. And I'm going to glue my twine on my flowers. And I'm going to use 3 of them. To put them down inside my pot, I'm going to add a little hot glue and stick them down in there. Off camera, I glued my dragonfly onto a small dowel. And that completes this project. I think this came out so cute. I did use my stamping kit to put on the welcome sign. I missed that one, but yeah, didn't it come out so cute? I like it. It's super simple, easy, and I'm happy with a dragonfly zipper. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And this is all of them together. That's it for this challenge, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you're new here, please stick around. And for those who have returned, I appreciate you being here and all the sweet comments you leave for me. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when I post new videos. Bye!